5 animals on this planet could kill you without effort. Some of them hunt prey that looks exactly like you. One of them we hunted to the edge of extinction. Not one of them has ever come after us. Number 5. The Greenland shark. Start with the one that has the most boring explanation, because it makes everything after it look worse. The Greenland shark is an apex predator of the Arctic. It grows to around 7 meters, bigger than a great white. It hunts by ambush, taking fish and seals, and researchers pulling open their stomachs have found the remains of moose, polar bears, horses, and in one case, an entire reindeer. It is also, almost certainly, the longest-lived vertebrate on Earth. Radiocarbon dating of eyelens tissue suggests these animals can live somewhere in the range of 250 to 400 years, possibly longer, which means there are Greenland sharks swimming right now that were born before the United States existed. Some of them were alive during the reign of Louis XIV. They don't reach sexual maturity until around 150 years old. Think about what that does to your sense of time. A shark that will not have its first offspring until it's older than most countries. There's more strangeness stacked on top of that. Nearly all Greenland sharks carry a parasite that attaches to the cornea of the eye and gradually destroys it, meaning most adults are functionally blind. And it doesn't seem to matter much because they hunt in near total darkness anyway. Their flesh is toxic. It contains such high concentrations of urea and trimethylamine oxide, chemicals that keep them from freezing in Arctic water, that eating it fresh will poison you and produce something like violent drunkenness. Icelanders solved this by burying the meat for months to ferment it, then hanging it to dry and eating the result as a delicacy called hakarl. In Greenland, someone who's drunk is described as shark sick. In all of this, a giant, slow, ancient, blind predator with a diet that clearly includes large mammals, there's exactly one reported attack on a human. It happened around 1859 in Pond Inlet, Canada. A Greenland shark was reportedly caught with a human leg in its stomach. That report was never scientifically investigated. It's a story, not a case file. And a shark with a human leg in its stomach in the Arctic is at least as likely to have scavenged it as taken it, given that this animal eats carrion routinely, including whale falls, and reportedly the remains of drowned land mammals that end up in the water. There are reports of these sharks bumping kayaks, no verified attacks on people. So why doesn't it hunt us? Honestly, because we're not there. The Greenland shark lives under the Arctic ice, in water just above freezing, often hundreds or thousands of meters down. It spends most of the year beneath 6 feet of ice. Humans do not swim there. There's another factor too, and it's almost funny. This shark moves at about 0.76 miles per hour, slower than you walk. It's one of the slowest swimming sharks in the ocean, which is why it relies on ambushing sleeping seals. It couldn't catch you if it wanted to. So number 5 isn't restraint, it's geography and bad top speed. Nothing about this is a choice. Hold on to that, because it's the baseline. Every animal after this one has fewer excuses. Number 4, the whale shark. Here's an animal built entirely to violate your expectations. The whale shark is the largest fish alive. Not the largest shark, the largest fish, full stop. They reach around 18 meters, roughly the length of a school bus and a half, and weigh in the range of 20 tons. A mouth that opens over a meter wide. By any visual measure, this is a monster. It has the silhouette of every fear people have about the ocean, and it eats plankton. Whale sharks are filter feeders. They swim with their mouths open, straining plankton and fish eggs through modified gill structures. The teeth are tiny and functionally useless, hundreds of rows, each a few millimeters long, doing essentially nothing. Divers swim alongside them routinely. There's an entire tourism industry built on it. Same story with the basking shark, the second largest fish, feeding on plankton and completely indifferent to divers. The point of including these isn't that they're harmless. It's what they prove about size. We assume big means dangerous, that the scale of an animal predicts what it can do to you. But the largest fish in the ocean eats some of the smallest organisms in it. The largest animal that has ever existed on this planet, the blue whale, larger than any dinosaur, feeds on krill. At the very top end of body size, the ocean's giants almost universally stopped hunting. Filter feeding is what you do when you're too big for chasing individual prey to make energetic sense. So the whale shark doesn't refuse to kill us either, exactly. It's not equipped to. The machinery isn't there. Two down, and neither one has actually made a decision. That changes now. Number 3. The gorilla. Let's get out of the water, because the land version of this question is different, and it's genuinely surprising to most people. A silverback mountain gorilla weighs between 140 and 220 kilograms. Estimates of their strength vary, but land somewhere between 4 and 10 times that of an average human. They have canines that can exceed 5 centimeters. Their bite force is roughly twice that of a lion's. If a silverback decided to kill you, the encounter would last a few seconds. Gorillas are almost entirely herbivorous. Their diet is leaves, stems, shoots, bamboo, fruit, and pith, with a small amount of insects, mostly ants and termites, eaten incidentally. An adult male can consume around 18 kilograms of vegetation a day. That's the whole explanation, and it's important because it separates two things people constantly conflate: strength and predation. A gorilla is not a predator. It has never been a predator. Everything about its arms and jaws evolved for tearing apart tough plant material and for intimidating rival males. The most dangerous thing about a gorilla is a display, chest beating, charging, roaring, and tearing up vegetation. And those displays are almost always bluffs, designed to end a conflict without physical contact. That distinction is the whole point of including this animal, because it separates two things people constantly conflate: strength and predation. We treat those as the same variable. Big and strong equals dangerous. But a predator isn't defined by how hard it can hit. It's defined by whether it needs to eat you. Everything about a hunting animal, the sensory system, the pursuit instinct, the willingness to accept injury in exchange for a meal, is downstream of a diet that requires killing. A gorilla has none of that machinery because leaves don't run. Diane Fossey spent 18 years living among mountain gorillas in Rwanda. She habituated groups to human presence and sat within meters of silverbacks for thousands of hours, close enough that they groomed her, and their infants climbed on her. She was eventually murdered by a person in her cabin, almost certainly over her anti-poaching work. The gorillas never touched her. There's a story worth telling here, because it complicates the picture in a good way. In 1996, at Brookfield Zoo outside Chicago, a 3-year-old boy climbed a barrier and fell about 5 meters into the gorilla enclosure. He was unconscious. A female gorilla named Binti Hua walked over, picked him up, cradled him with her own 18-month-old infant still clinging to her back, and carried him across the enclosure to the door where zookeepers could reach him. People have argued about that incident for 30 years. Some say it was maternal instinct generalized to a small primate. Some point out Binti Jua had been hand-raised by humans and trained with a doll to care for her own baby. The skeptical reading is that she was doing something learned, not something moral. But here's what nobody disputes. A 160-pound animal that could have killed a small child instantly and without effort picked him up gently and carried him to the exit. So with the gorilla, we get our first real answer that isn't geography or anatomy. It's diet. This animal has the equipment to kill you and no biological reason to. You are not food, and violence is expensive. That's 3. And now the excuses run out. Number 2, the sperm whale. Everything so far has had a clean explanation. The Greenland shark lives somewhere else. The whale shark can't. The gorilla doesn't eat meat. The sperm whale has no excuse at all. This is the largest toothed predator on the planet. Males reach 16 meters and 50 tons. They have the largest brain of any animal that has ever lived, around 8 kilograms, 6 times the size of yours. They dive to a kilometer or more in total darkness, hunting giant squid, and they find them using the most powerful biological sonar that exists. A sperm whale click can exceed 230 decibels underwater, which makes it the loudest sound produced by any animal on Earth. They are also a predator that specifically hunts large, active, intelligent prey. Not plankton, not vegetation. Squid that fight back, sperm whales surface covered in circular sucker scars from animals that did not go quietly. So this is not a filter feeder or herbivore. This is a hunter of large animals with a brain that dwarfs ours, that could kill a person by accident. Here's why its restraint is the most remarkable on this list. We hunted them relentlessly for about a century and a half. Commercial whaling killed hundreds of thousands of sperm whales. Some estimates put the total across the industrial era at over 700,000 animals. And in the early days, the killing was done from wooden rowboats. Men in a boat 6 meters long, rowing up to a 50-ton animal and driving a hand harpoon into it. The whales had every opportunity. A single tail strike would destroy a whaleboat. They were routinely surrounded by small, fragile vessels full of people actively trying to kill them. There are famous incidents where they fought back, and the most famous one is worth telling properly, because it's the exception that reveals the rule. On the morning of November 20th, 1820, the Nantucket whale ship Essex was in the South Pacific, about 1,500 nautical miles west of the Galapagos. 21 men aboard an 87-foot ship 15 months into a voyage. The whaleboats went down after a pod of sperm whales. First mate Owen Chase had his boat stove in by a whale's tail and had to return to the ship for repairs. While he was on deck patching it, he noticed something. A very large bull sperm whale, Chase estimated 85 feet, which is almost certainly an exaggeration, but this was an unusually big animal, had surfaced near the ship and was simply lying there, watching, covered in scars. Then it started swimming directly at the Essex. Chase ordered the helmsman to come about. In his own words, "The words were scarcely out of my mouth before he came down upon us with full speed and struck the ship with his head just forward of the forechains. He gave us such an appalling and tremendous jar as nearly threw us all on our faces. The whale passed under the hull, surfaced off the side, and appeared stunned. Then it did something no one had ever recorded before. It turned around and came back. Chase watched it approach a second time, and his description has haunted people for 2 centuries. The animal appeared with tenfold fury and vengeance in his aspect. I could distinctly see him smite his jaws together as if distracted with rage and fury. The second impact finished the ship. The Essex went down. What followed is one of the worst survival stories in maritime history, 90 days adrift in open whaleboats, and the men who lived did so by eating the men who didn't. 8 of 21 survived. Owen Chase wrote it all down, and 30 years later, a young writer named Herman Melville read that account. He combined it with stories of a real albino bull sperm whale that had fought whalers off the coast of Chile, an animal the whalers called Mocha Dick, and wrote a novel. So yes, it happened. But look at why that story is famous. It's famous because in a century and a half of an industry built on rowing up to these animals and stabbing them, it happened essentially once at that scale. A single ship. One documented case of a sperm whale sinking a full whale ship. Across 150 years of harpooning, sperm whales overwhelmingly did not retaliate against people. They fled. They dove. They occasionally smashed a whaleboat while thrashing in agony. What they almost never did was hunt the humans in the water, even though there were men in the water constantly, in small wooden boats covered in whale blood, entirely within reach. Here's the part that should genuinely stop you. Sperm whales today approach human swimmers voluntarily. Divers get in the water with them off Dominica and elsewhere. The whales come close, orient toward them, scan them with echolocation strong enough for people to feel it in their chests, and then simply hang there. Curious, non-aggressive. In the presence of the species that killed most of their ancestors. If any animal on this list has a motive, it's this one. It has the memory, the intelligence, the social structure, and the physical capability. And it doesn't. Which brings us to the one nobody can explain. Number 1, the orca. Here are the numbers, and they don't have an asterisk. In all of recorded history, there is not a single verified case of a wild orca killing a human being. Not one. There is exactly one documented case of significant injury. In 1972, a surfer named Hans Kretschmer was bitten off the California coast. He had noticed sea lions in the water nearby. The whale clamped down hard enough for 3 teeth to penetrate bone, then released him. He needed around 100 stitches and recovered without lasting disability. That's it. One bite, over 50 years ago, from an animal that had sea lions in its immediate vicinity. Beyond that, there are a handful of brief encounters that went nowhere. That's the complete record. Now weigh that against what this animal actually is. Orcas are the ocean's apex predator worldwide. They occur in every ocean on Earth. Males reach 9 meters and 6 tons. They hunt cooperatively in family groups using coordinated tactics passed down through generations. They kill great white sharks. There are documented cases of orcas flipping great whites, holding them upside down until they enter tonic immobility, and then removing the liver with surgical precision. They hunt blue whales, the largest animals that have ever existed on this planet. They beach themselves deliberately in Patagonia to snatch sea lions off the shore and wriggle back into the water. They generate waves to wash seals off Antarctic ice floes. They herd fish into balls and stun them with their tails. Critically, many populations are specialist marine mammal hunters. Seals, sea lions, porpoises, animals that, from underneath, in the water, are approximately the size and shape and silhouette of a human being. Great white sharks bite surfers because they mistake them for seals. Orcas, with vastly better sensory equipment and vastly more intelligence, apparently never make that mistake. Or make it and stop. There is a documented incident from 2005 in Alaska where a young orca charged a 12-year-old boy swimming in Helm Bay. It aborted the approach just before contact and swam away. It got there and then decided not to. That is the boy from the beginning of this video, and the details are worth having in full. His name was Ellis Miller. He was swimming in about 4 feet of water in Helm Bay near Ketchikan. Helm Bay is full of harbor seals, which is the first thing that matters. The second is that he was not wearing a wetsuit. A pod of transient orcas, the marine mammal hunting ecotype, the ones that eat seals, entered the bay. Miller heard sounds underwater that he described as being like gunshots. That is echolocation. A hunting orca produces sharp, powerful clicks to build an acoustic picture of what is in front of it. And at close range, you do not so much hear it as feel it through your body. An adult male about 25 feet long rushed him. Then it bumped him. It struck his shoulder and the left side of his chest, with enough contact to be felt and not enough to injure. Then it bent its body. Deborah Giles described it as essentially folding itself in half to turn around and went back to deeper water. No bite, no injury, nothing. The explanation that fits best came from researcher Volker Dieck, and it is the most revealing sentence in this entire video. His interpretation was that because the boy was not wearing a wetsuit, he appeared to be suitable prey when the whale echolocated on him. But when the whale got within visual range, he did not match the prey image, and the whale abandoned the attack. Read what that actually describes. The sonar said seal, the eyes said no. In the gap between those two pieces of information, in a fraction of a second, at speed, committed to a charge, the animal changed its mind. That is not an animal that does not hunt humans because it cannot recognize us. That is an animal that ran the identification, got a conflict, and chose the answer that meant not eating. So what's going on? There are several theories, and none of them fully closes the case. The first is dietary specialization. Orcas are divided into ecotypes, distinct populations with distinct diets, distinct dialects, and distinct hunting cultures that essentially never overlap. Some eat only fish, some eat only marine mammals. Those preferences are extraordinarily rigid, taught by mothers to calves over years. Humans simply are not on any of those menus, and orcas do not experiment much. How rigid? There are recorded cases of fish-eating orcas killing marine mammals and then not eating them, even when the pod was going hungry. They killed the food and left it, because that food is not what their culture eats. This leads to the second theory, and it is the one that unsettles people. A cultural taboo. Orcas have culture in the technical sense, behaviors transmitted socially across generations rather than encoded genetically. Dialects differ between pods. Hunting techniques are taught by mothers over years. Even fads. In the 1980s, a female orca in the Pacific Northwest started swimming around with a dead salmon balanced on her head, and within weeks, the behavior had spread through multiple pods. Then it vanished. 37 years later, it came back. That is not instinct, that is a trend. So some researchers now think the avoidance of humans may work the same way, a learned norm passed down, obeyed with remarkable consistency across every ocean on Earth. Not a rule anyone wrote, a rule everyone follows. The third theory is that they have figured us out. Orcas are extraordinarily intelligent, with a brain structure that includes elaborate paralimbic development associated with emotional and social processing, regions that are, in some respects, more developed than the equivalent regions in humans. Some researchers suggest orcas may simply recognize humans as dangerous, that populations learned, over generations, that the things in boats kill you, and that lesson propagated through the same cultural channels that carry dialects and hunting techniques. There's a version of that theory that goes further. Deborah Giles, a researcher who studies these animals, was asked directly whether orcas might avoid us because they recognize us as intelligent. Her answer was careful, and it stuck with me. She said she didn't know how to answer that. But if there's any animal on this planet with the capacity to judge the intelligence of another species besides humans, it would be killer whales. The fourth theory is the least flattering. We might just not be worth eating. As Giles put it, we're not that fatty. Compared to a seal, which is essentially a bag of blubber, engineered by evolution to be the most calorie-dense object in the ocean, a human is a lean, bony, low-yield meal wrapped in neoprene. But she immediately identified the hole in her own argument. If that were the whole story, you'd expect some historical examples of orcas eating people and then losing interest. There aren't any. It's not that they tried us and stopped. It's that it appears to never have started. Now, two more things about orcas, because this is where it stops being a story about restraint and becomes something stranger. The first is the boats. Since 2020, a subpopulation of orcas off the Iberian Peninsula has been ramming sailing vessels. They have disabled dozens of boats and sunk several. It has been reported everywhere as orcas attacking humans, except they are not. In every single case, the orcas target the rudder. They interact with the boat, not the people. Nobody has been attacked. As the filmmaker Tom Mustel put it, if killer whales wanted to start attacking people, disabling small vessels is a very strange way of going about it. They could just start eating swimmers all over the place. They have identified the object they are interested in, and it is not us. The second thing is harder to sit with. Over a 21-year period, researchers documented 34 separate cases of wild orcas offering food to humans: fish, rays, squid, seabirds. In one case, a turtle. They offered these things to people swimming in the water, to people standing on boats, to people on shorelines. The events happened across multiple oceans, involving different populations that have no contact with each other. And in several cases, when the offering was not accepted, the orca retrieved it and offered it again. Food sharing is a well-documented orca behavior. They divide prey within their pods constantly as a way of maintaining social bonds. What these 34 cases show is that behavior being extended outward to a completely different species, apparently deliberately. Nobody knows what it means. The honest scientific position is that we are observing a social behavior being directed at an unusual target, and we cannot read the intent. But the pattern is consistent enough across enough independent populations that it is not noise. There is also the historical case of Eden, Australia, and it is one of the strangest human-animal relationships ever recorded. For decades, into the early 20th century, a pod of orcas actively cooperated with human whalers in Twofold Bay. The orcas would locate migrating baleen whales, herd them into the bay, and then alert the whalers, swimming to the boats and slapping their tails on the water until the men came out. The humans would kill the whale. The orcas would take the tongue and the lips. The whalers would take the rest, after leaving the carcass in the water for a day or so. They called it the law of the tongue, and both sides honored it for generations. The lead orca was named Old Tom. His skeleton is in a museum in Eden today, and the teeth on one side are visibly worn down from decades of gripping the ropes of whaleboats to help tow them and to hold harpooned whales in place. That is a wild apex predator that entered into a working arrangement with humans, maintained it across generations, and physically wore down its own teeth doing the job. So the record for orcas is not just an absence of aggression, it includes cooperation, negotiation, and gift-giving. So what is actually going on here? Line up the 5, and something becomes clear. We have been asking one question that turns out to be 4 different questions. The Greenland shark does not kill us because of geography. We are not in its water. The whale shark does not kill us because of anatomy. It has no mechanism to. The gorilla does not kill us because of diet. It eats leaves, and violence is expensive. Those 3 are not refusing anything. They are just not built for it, or not near us. That is not restraint. It is circumstance. The sperm whale and the orca are a different category entirely. Both of them hunt large, active prey. Both of them encounter humans regularly. Both of them are capable of killing a person effortlessly and without risk. Both have brains far larger than ours, with sophisticated social structures and cultural transmission. In the sperm whale's case, we gave it a reason. We killed hundreds of thousands of them from small boats at close range over a century and a half. If retaliation were within this animal's behavioral repertoire, that was the moment. With the orca, there isn't even a mistaken identity incident on record from an animal that specializes in hunting seal-shaped objects. For those 2, we're not their food stops being a complete answer. It might be right, but it's doing an enormous amount of work to explain a perfect record across thousands of documented encounters in every ocean over centuries. There's a comparison that makes the gap obvious. Great white sharks bite people. Not often, a handful of fatal incidents worldwide per year across all shark species. But it happens, and the leading explanation is mistaken identity. A surfer on a board, seen from below, silhouetted against the light, looks enough like a seal that a shark commits before it can tell the difference. That's a sensory limitation. Great whites hunt by ambush from below in low visibility, and they have to decide fast. Sometimes they're wrong. Orcas hunt the same prey. Seals, sea lions, porpoises. They operate in the same water, sometimes the same beaches. And they have vastly better equipment for telling things apart. Echolocation that can distinguish species, plus the largest and most socially sophisticated brain in the ocean after the sperm whale. So orcas make the identification correctly, every time, everywhere, across all of recorded history. Or they make it and then don't act on it, which is what appears to have happened in Alaska in 2005, when a young orca charged a swimming boy and pulled up short. Either way, that's not an accident of biology. Something is deciding, the number that actually matters. There's one more statistic worth putting next to all of this, and it flips the whole video. We kill somewhere around 100 million sharks per year. Roughly 100 million every year, largely for fins. Great white sharks, the most feared animal on this planet, kill an average of somewhere between 4 and 11 people annually across all shark species combined. In 2024, the International Shark Attack File confirmed 47 unprovoked bites worldwide, 4 of them fatal, 4 to 11, against 100 million. Commercial whaling killed hundreds of thousands of sperm whales. Sperm whales have killed a handful of people in centuries, almost all of them while being actively harpooned. Mountain gorillas are critically endangered, with roughly 1,000 individuals left, and the primary threats are habitat loss and poaching. Dian Fossey was murdered by a human for trying to protect them. Orcas have never killed a person in the wild. The only human deaths involving orcas happened in captivity, in concrete tanks, to animals that experts widely believe were suffering psychological damage from confinement. That's the pattern underneath every one of these stories. The restraint is entirely one-directional. Look at what each of these animals has actually received from us. The Greenland shark was hunted for the oil in its liver, millions of them, at the industry's peak, rendered down for lamp fuel and machine lubricant. They're now listed as vulnerable, and because they don't reproduce until they're around 150 years old, a population that gets depleted takes centuries to recover. There are Greenland sharks alive today that were born before the fishery started and will still be alive long after everyone watching this is gone, swimming through an ocean with a fraction of the animals it had when they were young. The whale shark is endangered, hunted for its fins and meat, and killed regularly by ship strikes because it feeds at the surface. Mountain gorillas came within a few hundred individuals of extinction. They're recovering now, slowly, because of conservation work that people including Fossey died for. Sperm whales were reduced by an estimated 2/3. We took the oil out of their heads to light street lamps and lubricate machinery, and then we stopped, mostly because we found petroleum, not because we decided to. And orcas. The southern resident population in the Pacific Northwest is critically endangered. In the 1960s and 70s, live capture operations for marine parks removed dozens of young animals from those pods. The captures targeted calves, which meant driving pods into coves with boats and explosives and taking their children. Those are the animals that then went on to never harm a human being in the wild. So the question the title asks, why do these predators refuse to kill us, turns out to be the less interesting half of it. 5 animals, any of which could kill you without effort. Some of them have every reason to. One of them we hunted from open rowboats for a century and a half, and it still swims up to divers and looks at them. Another one we took the children of, and it brings us fish. They're not the ones with a problem.